Hey, what is going on, folks? This is Hellbent, and today I have a very special guest. I'm joined by my friend Joe Glines, who has his own YouTube channel where he does tutorials in AutoHotkey. And today we are going to be doing, what are we going to be doing today, Joe?
Well, I'm still figuring it out, but I think, definitely hot strings and focus on hot strings, maybe a little bit of hotkeys.
Okay, that's great because I am not really a hotkey guy. I don't know if you've ever seen many of my scripts, but they pretty much consist of number pad 1 as my hotkeys, and that's pretty much it.
That's
So
funny.
I'm sure I can learn some things from this, and I'm sure some of my viewers will be able to learn some things from you as well.
Yeah, I think I,
Uh,
I love, we've made a couple in the past of us, right? And it's awesome because I think if we were to look at it between you and me, we have the vast majority of videos on AutoHotkey. So we're our quote unquote competitors, yet we still don't even dabble like in each other's areas. So it's
yeah,
funny.
yeah, which is good,
It
which
is.
is
It
good,
is. Yeah.
right? And even when we do even when we do have things that are along the same lines, our methodology is a little bit different,
Yeah, which is good.
right?
Yeah, absolutely right. That way you learn other ways. This is
So,
why I love doing this kind of stuff, right? And stuff I'll do with Jackie in the webinars and AutoHotkey, and we'll be doing stuff, and he'll in live in the webinar, and I'm like, oh wow, I never would have done it that way. Like, it's really cool to be working with people, and you see other approaches, and you're like, wow, I hadn't thought of it that way. Yeah, it's very cool.
yeah.
Um,
So to break it down a little bit, I know that you're very much into hotkeys and hot strings. Can you give my viewers an idea on how many hot strings it is that you have that you use?
let me try to launch this tool here because I think, oh my, I suspended my main script because I had so many I didn't want to be conflicting with it. Oh, and that, hold on. Studio has a hotkey for control. Oh, there we go. All right. Now it's launched. Oh, you know what though? That isn't the one I was thinking of. Hold on a second.
Yep.
It's in here. This is my main script. And in it, the control M is what I was hitting but I think it's my apps key H launches one, but I use it for my Hangouts normally. So here's my apps keys and apps key H. So this is the one I was thinking I wanted to launch. I launched a different one. My system tray's on the other screen, just so we don't get confused here. But let me relaunch my main script.
Yeah. Don't
Now I
worry.
want to hit.
I'm sure that when we do the video for your channel, I'm gonna have some hiccups as well. So
Yeah. So here, this hotkey help script. It's an AutoHotkey script that looks across all of your running AutoHotkey files. And I have it right now just displaying the hotkeys, the key combinations that do different stuff.
this is a script that's looking at all the scripts that you have currently running and
Right.
all the hotkeys associated with those
Yeah.
scripts.
So, and you can see it breaks them out. It's like, this is in AutoHotkey Studio. These are the default ones. And that's what's weird is there's actually a bunch more, obviously, in Studio. But
Hmm.
in my main one here, I have apps key and S. And normally, which I've done a bad job, but like this one, apps key and C, and see how it describes it here. This script, if you put a comment, and we can look at one like, well, actually, which one was that? Apps key and C. I try to keep this one alphabetical. So see to the right here where I say ACC viewer from Jethro.
Hmm.
That is what gives me my little guide here, right? So see it here. On these other ones, I didn't put it in the same inline thing, so they're blank. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yes,
So
yes.
so this one, it gives you. This is why I love this script to give to people. And I'll try to remember to link it here after we talk about it. When you're new, one of the biggest faults, and I had it too when I first started using AutoHotkey, was I'm like, wow, this is really cool. I'm going to make a bunch of hotkeys. And then I would do them, and then I would forget them. And there was no easy way to look at them. And
That's
so
why I
this,
don't use hotkeys.
yeah. And so with this script, for someone who's new to it, it can pop up and show you, oh yeah, I can find it, right? I can like, oh, okay, great. But so anyway, so in my main script, this is my main script, and I have all these things. And what they do, a short description of what they do. But it goes across each running script, right? And this is where I've tried to be good. Obviously, I added some to that first one where I didn't put in what they do.
So just so that way people follow, what you're saying is that where it's tabbed over, where you have the second
Yeah,
section of
yeah,
writing,
right,
that would be the comments that are associated with it.
right. On the
So
same
it's
line. Yeah.
so it's just removing it. I imagine when you have it in your script, it has a semicolon.
Yes, at least a
Okay,
semicolon or
but it
something.
removes the semicolon here, so that way you can read a little bit easier.
Yeah, right,
Okay,
right.
okay.
But I love it because it makes it easy when you haven't used them for a while. Um, it's easy to pop up and be like, oh yeah, there that I have. And now you can. I'm trying to remember here, but it's not these. So it's in the tray menu. Let me bring this over so people can see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go to settings, and this is the script. This is where you tell it what you want to see. Right. And actually something's wrong with the GUI. I'm gonna have to have Chad look at this again. I changed it. And it's not a, oh, this one, maybe it is fine. But the show hot strings, I have that disabled, right? If I turn that on, you're going to see all my hot strings in addition to all my hotkeys. The thing is, I have like a spell check that's always running that has over 4,000 hot strings in it.
And
Besides
that's
all
just
my,
for a spell
yeah,
check.
right. Right. And then I have, a lot of them that I just, in my main script. So I just leave that off because it's so much. It's just overwhelming. The irony, though, was this script that I'm showing you didn't have a hotkey to launch like the menu, which I thought was crazy. So I built in, I think I changed it to where I can click settings here. It only, oh, that's what it was. It only had hot strings for pulling up this menu, but I couldn't remember them. Right. And I'm like, how lame is that? So I added the settings here in the system tray so I could pull it up because I'm like, I rarely use this thing. Right. I just have it. It's more for sharing with people that they're new to it. But here, and actually, so I was just noticing here. So oh, there's that's fine. That's apps key and H hotkey. Oh, that's because I just wrote that one. Right. I changed it. But my
Now, okay. I'm gonna be embarrassed here a little bit, but what is the apps key?
oh, it's all right. It's you know what? Let me hold up my keyboard because it'll just be easier to describe it. If I can.
The only one I can think of it is like I have one that's a rectangle with 3 lines in it.
That's it. It's two
Okay,
over
that's
to
it.
your right of the space bar.
Okay, yeah.
Now, not every keyboard has that.
And
I make sure I buy any laptop and everything that they have it because I use it a lot. And also on laptops, you might still have it, but it's not right there. It's like a function key, like a shift something, and then you can get it. But it truly is named the apps key. And so I early on said, hey, you know what? It's the apps key. I'm going to leverage that to say I'm going to use my apps key for launching programs. Right. So that's why a lot of mine at the beginning here, they all start with apps key and M and apps key and F. And it's launches programs.
I think that's a pretty good way of thinking of it. Yeah.
Well, that's the other big hint I'd say is if once you start using hot strings or hotkeys, have patterns. And you know what a really good one to show you was where's my all right, so Control Alt H is hibernate, and Control Alt S, which I don't know why it doesn't sort it. It must be yeah, you would think it would sort it, but Control Alt S is suspend. So I make hotkeys or hot strings when I can have a pattern like Control Shift upper. Oh, there's my suspend. Control S. And then Control Shift T is I can highlight text and it'll title case it, and Control Shift U will uppercase it, and Control Shift L will lowercase it. Right. So see the patterns, like when you have things that a pattern will help. I make sure I do that. These are my. I have a bunch of passwords that they're encrypted and they're stored in a separate file elsewhere. And so when I hit like Alt 1, it goes to the other file where they're encrypted, pulls them in, decrypts them, sends them as keystrokes, and then blanks the memory. So they're not actually stored in this script. Like you don't see the plain text version of it. They're not stored in the other script as plain text. Yet I have my passwords that I can just hit a hotkey and it will, send my password.
I could probably use something like that.
Yes.
I hate having to remember so many passwords. I always end up having to get them to resend me passwords and change them again. And then because it's changed, now I definitely ain't going to remember it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously there's some other tools that you can use for it, but I just like this way I have them in AutoHotkey and I can update them and change them. yet they're not stored anywhere in plain text. So if someone sees them, they can't just grab it immediately. But it's yeah, I wrote my own little script. It's not really even encrypted. It's more like encoded. But it's enough where it's going to take a programmer to be able to figure it out, right? Not just anybody can do it. But like I
First
can
of all,
hit
they'd have to find the file, and then
right.
then understand what the file is.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And have the function that actually does the encrypting or decrypting, or they could what's it called? Brute force it. Maybe it, I'm sure something can break it. But yeah. So anyway, these are hotkeys that are currently running across all my scripts. So I don't know the actual count. We could probably copy this and paste it somewhere, and I get an idea. But these are ones in scripts that are currently running, because of course some of these launch programs like this. Well, this launches a device manager. I was going to say some of them launch AutoHotkey scripts that have hotkeys built into them, but they're not shown here because that script isn't running. If that makes sense.
If you have this up and you ran that other thing, do you have to refresh this, or does it automatically refresh it?
I don't know.
Okay, it doesn't even matter. You'd probably most likely you'd have to refresh it, but
yeah, I would think so.
Curious.
Yeah, I think right now that's just a default built-in one. So I don't know. Oh, let's see what the help does. Apparently nothing. Does it change anything? Hotkey help. I don't know what that did. Yeah, I don't know. Weird. But yeah, anyway, so that wasn't going to be the focus of it, but it does help give you an idea how many things I have running. So now let's go back to creating some. So let's stick with hotkeys for now. And hotkeys can be used for a lot of different things, but mainly I think of it as like accelerator keys that are going to probably start something is the easiest way to do it. And now here, let's build a cheat sheet. So we're going to do this equals control. That equals alt. The plus equals shift. And the pound sign equals the Windows key. Those are the most commonly used modifier keys. That means that they in themselves, you can use it with another and the apps key, like I showed you. Although these work a little differently. The caps lock key also works, but most people don't use that. But these are by far the most commonly used modifier keys. And so let's go ahead and do a demo here. So let's do the Windows key, and let's say the problem with the problem with the Windows key is Windows all the way back to probably even 3.1 3.1 didn't have the Windows. I don't think it was a key at that point. But XP had Windows, like Windows M would minimize the screen. They have built-in hotkeys using the Windows key. And so because those are launched by Windows, they're so ingrained in Windows that you sometimes can't override them. So the Windows key itself isn't a great one to use as a modifier key unless you know for certain, like Windows T isn't a thing. But let's go ahead and try it. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you know of situations where it does exist within the Windows software that you can override it, and other cases where you can't override it?
I just don't recall, because I just stay away from them. Honestly, I know Windows E is launches Explorer, and I don't. Let's see if we can try it here. So Windows E. Save this, and just for those of you who are really new to AutoHotkey, this first one, single instance force, that's a directive that just tells AutoHotkey, hey, if this script's already running, only run it one time if you relaunch it. And this little H down here, oh, that's the other one. Let me exit out. Oh, that is this one. Sorry. So I'm going to launch it. Now it's running down here. And now if I hit Windows E, let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. So it did overwrite it. I'm going to comment this out, save it. And actually, if I relaunch it, it'll probably exit because there's no hotkey in here, right? So now when I hit Windows,
it'll automatically exit the script.
Yeah, that's right. So it'll open Explorer, which is a great one to know of. See, the other thing is a lot of the ones that are built into Windows, you mentioned, do I know which ones I can overwrite, which ones I don't? The ones I use, I like, so I don't mess with them because I like the Windows M minimizes everything and the Windows Shift M maximizes everything that was up.
I think the only time I've ever used a Windows key is for a script that you gave me.
Yeah, okay. So this was a simple example here. We said run and Notepad because this is where you got to know a little bit about your computer, right? Notepad is a program that is in the path of what Windows looks for executables. I could have said notepad.exe to make it a little clearer, right? And then truly, if I knew the path to this, I could type that in here, it's probably under your Windows directory under, I forget what it is.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in order to do that without specifying a path, like you would, in a lot of cases, it would have to be in the working directory, or it would have to be in, what is it, program files or Windows files?
No, the thing is, and we can, let me see here. Let's look at it. So, oh, that's the wrong. There we go. Let me pull this over so you guys can see what I'm doing. If you go to System, and you're not wrong, it's just somewhere in here, and I'm trying. There we go. Advanced Settings, environmental. There we go. So environmental variables. This path, so which we can say edit, which looks terrible. Let me see. That's system variables. So this is really confusing because there's a path here and a path up here, right? And now so you can see this one. See all these folders?
Okay.
These are where you could have it, and it will automatically find it. This is my understanding, right? Anywhere where it's in one of these, the System 32, I think that's where Notepad might be. If it's not, it might be just straight under Windows. But it searches all of these, and if you have something you use a lot, you can add to it, right? So if you actually want something where I don't have to include the path, you can put it in here, and then you don't have to have the path to it because it searches there. It's similar to the LIB folders in AutoHotkey, how it'll automatically search in certain, like, at least three places.
The only place I know for sure is in Documents. That's the only place I know for sure.
Well, to be more specific, it's in the AutoHotkey folder under your Documents.
In Documents, yes.
Right, and then under the where AutoHotkey is installed, there's a LIB folder, and then there's a third one, which is the local folder of the script that you're running. So it looks in those three places automatically. But anyway, so it'll search here. If you didn't have that handy, that's why if we go back to like my main scripts, you'll see I include the path in a lot of things, right? Because they're not in one of those locations. The other thing this is the one thing I don't like about AutoHotkey is knowing when to wrap things in quotes and not, right? So in my brain, I'd want to do this, right? Because that's much more of like a Windows thing if you were doing stuff in Windows in the command prompt or something. But in this, you don't want to have quotes around them. I'm not sure how it actually understands, when there's spaces in there, like right between the AutoHK work, right? That's a space. To me, that would break, but it understands it and figures it out. So yeah, you just don't have to worry about it. So you'd put the path to anything. Let's go back to the script. The full path, and you can always put the full path. Just sometimes you can use, just an abbreviated version of it. Or, like I said, I use it for running things, but you can do it just for. So I'm gonna save this, relaunch it, and now when I hit Windows E, it triggers. Right, so that is a thing. If I want a script to, so that's the other one. Let's back up one other step. That single instance force, when we had this commented out, and let's even do that. This one will be even better. Let's comment out the hotkey, and now when I run this, you're going to see it pops up with this message box world. The script is still running, but when I hit OK, because there's nothing else, it exits out. Right, there's no reason why the script should stay running.
Yeah.
But if I uncomment this and relaunch it, and now when I hit Windows E, notice it doesn't actually get to the message box because this hotkey is here, right? So it tries and it says, oh wait, this is contingent on this hotkey to be hit, then I'll do this. So even though it's running.
Now, one thing I have observed though is with those things, if you were to, you know how it, when you ran it, as soon as I got to that first hotkey, it stopped. What I believe will happen if you replace that return with a, let's say, I don't know, control some hotkey, some other hotkey,
Yep.
and then put another message box, I'm pretty sure it'll automatically bleed into that one.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean after it?
Like, yeah, get rid of the return and then put a new hotkey and then a new message box.
So Windows E, hello, world. Yeah. But if I just do Windows C, of course, it's only going to start there, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
go up. Yeah. And that's the return you want to prevent. What I thought, which is what you were alluding to at one point, is by having a hotkey, everything above this is called, I think it's called the auto exec section of your script. So up until the first return, which I can't type, or a hotkey, if I remember correctly,
Hotkey or
that is
hotstring,
your
yeah.
that's your auto exec section.
Execute.
Yeah, auto execute. Yeah, and that will run. And so that's one thing. And it you know, it gets deeper than I want to go in this video, but it is something to understand. Of like, yeah, those will run. These will be separate. And also, this is one of the things that might confuse you. Even though you launch this, like I'm going to relaunch it and it runs, and you can see in my system tray when I relaunch it, right? It blinks kind of. So I relaunched it. It ran, but you don't see anything happen, right? Well, if I had something here that didn't understand and I try to relaunch it, so notice it didn't relaunch it because it says, hey, there's a problem, right? And this is one of those weird things to me of like, what's it called? A system running error? Not running error, runtime error.
Mm-hmm.
AutoHotkey is smart enough to check the script and say, hey, is everything here, does it look like it works right? If it doesn't, we're not even going to let it launch. But sometimes you have a runtime area where it doesn't get caught here, but when you go to do something, then it gets stuck. And that's a
Yeah.
runtime error where, versus this one is checking it before you're even launching it. So anyway, so you can have it, you know, trigger message boxes or GUIs or whatever, right? Hotkeys are super helpful in launching things, or telling it to start doing something. And so in a lot of mine, which is like that main one you saw, I have it configured where I can, and when I was talking about earlier, the changing the case, so Control Shift up, upper cases, Control Shift L, lower cases, and Control Shift T, title cases. So those are just ones I love having those things handy, right? So when I'm doing something and I realize, crap, I messed that up, that should have been lowercase or something, I can just highlight it and hit a hotkey. So it's not launching an external script, it's just launching what's, you know, right after it, up to that return.
That's a cool one.
Yeah,
I
and
had
so go ahead.
I had I had actually created a little program where I wanted to make everything uppercase, so I just created a little program that take everything and do it. But having a hotkey to do it, one line at a time or one little section at a time,
Yeah.
that's definitely
Well, whatever you have, you know, highlighted. Basically, if I remember right, I wrote this thing years ago, but it send, you know, it sends all it. I can't remember if it cuts it or copies it, but it basically puts it on the clipboard, transforms it, and then sends a paste back to replace everything. But it's super fast. That's the other one, which well, that would come up more in Hotstrings, but Hotstrings and this one too, you can send, like, let's go ahead and get into it here. So I'm going to relaunch this, and now I'm going to come over here so I'm not messing with my original one. I'm going to hit Windows E. And so did you see, and hopefully that came across slow enough? Did you see the individual characters getting sent?
yes, I did.
So if I do it again, you'll see it's literally sending each letter at one at a time, right? Which there's nothing wrong with that. It's pretty cool. It works. But if you have a lot of text, it's a slow way to send stuff. What you can do, instead of doing that, let's just comment that out, is we're going to say clipboard And there's other things we should be doing this, but instead I'm gonna put a small sleep here to make sure it gets set.
Yeah.
So it's 1/10 of a second.
So there is also like a clip weight.
That's right. Clip weight's a
Yeah.
great one, but you have to blank the clipboard first.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, yeah, we don't need to get into that right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But remember, this
100
is from,
milliseconds for that much text is no problem. Even on a
yeah,
slow day, that's gonna
that's
be
right.
okay.
Yeah. And notice here, this is the, oh, you don't, oh, there's the caret, right? That's the control. So I'm gonna send Control V, which is of course paste.
So somebody actually asked me the other day about what that key is. So if anyone doesn't know, it's on, at least on my keyboard and probably on Joe's key, it's Shift-6 to give
Yeah.
that character.
Yeah. It is, and it's not a well-known. I'm glad you actually said that, because it's something we all assume, right, that people understand. The same thing with the apps key, right? Which that one's, even then, that's probably even lesser known than the caret key. So I'm going to relaunch it now. When I hit Windows E, notice it all gets there at one time, right? It's just sending, it copies it to the clipboard first and then sends the whole word instead of sending each character. Again, with something so short as this, it probably doesn't matter, but when you have longer text, it's a much more efficient way to send your.
So I will point out to people that might want to use something like this. There is a way that if you have, let's say I have that as my hotkey, well, I might also have already something on my clipboard that I want to save. I don't want to
Right.
override it. So what I might want to do before I do all of that stuff is actually save the clipboard, then do that stuff, and then restore the clipboard.
Yeah, I do that all the time. Whoop. And what's important is you want clipboard all, right? Because that way, otherwise it would just keep the plain text.
Yeah.
So clipboard all keeps the RTF and whatever's on there. And that's where also here, then you say, okay, now sleep 50. This is where you really want the sleep, is when you restore the clipboard, because otherwise, there, now I'm restoring it. If there's no sleep here, sometimes this restoring of the clipboard ends up happening before the paste happens, and you send your original thing. And it was, oh my word, I spent hours on that one. And just when you read on the forum, you'll find someone says, yeah, it's not technically a bug. It's just depending on how fast, your computer says, oh, send paste. And it says, okay, now thinking you're like your computer saying send paste. Meanwhile, it moves to the next line and swaps out the clipboard so fast before it can actually send paste. And
so maybe it's behind the scenes, it's triggering something to happen, and then it says, okay, well, I've triggered that thing to happen, so now I can move on.
Right. And yet the thing to happen actually took a millisecond, and it shoves something else in the clipboard before it actually happens.
Yeah.
So just a food for thought. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up the whole. I really don't like it when people don't do this, because hey, why not? Right? Why lose your clipboard? Why not just keep it backed up and restore it later? Yeah, you can add which I'm sure I have, and if we just search for clip weight in my main. So that this is basically we could copy this over, and so I do this. I do it so much. I wrote a little function for it, right? And that way I can just call it and it'll do it for me. But that so blanking the clipboard, first back it up, blank it, send Control C, and then wait for up to a second. I should have this common. This is the one thing that annoys me with AutoHotkey here, is that everywhere else they're in milliseconds, and this is the only place I'm aware where it's actually in a second. 1 is 1 second, and 2 is 2 seconds, not 2,000. I don't understand why in the world that's the way it is, but it is.
Well, AutoHotkey's all over the place in a lot of things. So.
Yeah, and that's where if the clipboard doesn't get anything in it, you'll get this message box that pops up and says, "Hey, no text was actually shoved into the clipboard." And this return stops it from moving forward. So you don't even try to paste something because there's nothing there. And this gives you a little message box to realize, hey, you know what? There's nothing there, man. But yeah.
Now, how would that return work? Because
it just stops it from proceeding forward.
Yeah, but you're in a function. you're in a function, so it's just
It's not a
returning out of
function.
the function.
It's not a function. It's, oh, well, you mean from this one? Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, it
like you
still
would,
stops it from going forward.
but you're talking about if you added more code to this function, though, right?
Yeah, yeah. I understand what you're saying. But I'm pretty sure it still stops it
Like, okay,
overall.
if you use that function right now, if you
Yeah,
use that function right now, and it gives you that error, right? If you have more code after this function call, it's still going to execute that code.
yeah,
But if your
yeah.
code is inside of this function, then it won't execute that code.
Right. Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
And this is my one for restoring. You know, after I've used that one and I do my thing, then I use this one to push back in, and I have it as a function where I can change this, the amount of sleep time, just in case it needed to change. But yeah, anyway, so that clip weight is a very good thing to have in there, and backing up your clipboard.
Can I take us on a little bit of a tangent for a second about hotkeys? One of the things that is always like I know that it's possible, but um, combining multiple keys, like it's not something I've ever done. I've seen it every once in a while. So let's say if I wanted to combine an S with an E or something like that.
Well, what you really want to do is use a modifier key, right? Like here, like see these, Control Alt E, right? Is that what you're talking about?
That kind of, but like I've seen, I think I've seen where you can have like I have to press both mouse buttons to trigger it, or like E with left click. So combining more than one key at a time, not just the modifiers, but see that I think it's that and. Okay, so that's what it is. It's
Yeah, when it's not a modifier key, and that's where you saw up above with the apps key as well, right? You use the ampersand to combine two different things. That's what I use for this one, just to turn up and down the sound, right? I think this is the one. I thought this was the one where if I'm over the taskbar, but maybe it does that automatically now.
so do you know if there's any limitations on the kind of keys you can use with that, or is it pretty much like I can use any key combination that I want?
I don't know, because I don't honestly I use modifier keys with something. I don't combine like hit H and J at the same time to do this.
Hmm.
Right. I have none. I just rely on almost always a modifier key in conjunction. This approach, unless it's with the apps key, almost always is what I do.
Okay, okay.
Right. That's just my default. I know you're right. You can. To me, I don't, in my head, I'd be like, oh yeah, I hit the YU. Like how am I going to remember that? So I don't do
There,
that.
there's also I know that you can also do not just on key down, but also you can use the key up as
Yeah,
the hotkey.
sure.
I'd
Yeah.
seen some.
Well, I was gonna say, and you can have it where it passes through, so it doesn't actually absorb. Like let's go back to here. That caps lock's gonna drive me nuts. Whatever. All right. Hello world. So right now, if I save this, relaunch it, and hit Windows E, it's gonna do what we think, right? Hello world. But I believe if I come in here and put the tilde, I think, and I relaunch this, now when I hit Windows E, notice, did you see the message box pop up? Right, it came up, but so did Explorer. It
Uh-huh.
didn't absorb the Windows E.
So it
So I
didn't block
used it.
its native function.
Right, it's you basically can use it as a trigger. So let's say, hey, every time I launch Explorer, I want something else to happen. Right, so I could take advantage of Windows E is already a thing and just say, hey, when I hit that, also do something else. Right. Let's say I could even wait for it. I could do a when activate, wait for this to exist, activate it, and then change the view to details, which is, what I normally want. I know that's a setting I can set somewhere, but let's say I could just have it automatically do that for me, right? That way it's tied to it. So that's a way that you can not have it absorb it. But you're right. You can trigger it off the up with the release of the key. I don't usually do those, but you can.
I had seen. I don't know if you know what it is, but recently I had tried helping somebody out with something, but I encountered some weirdness where the down key and using the down key, it didn't work quite the way it was supposed to work. I don't know with the up key.
Yeah, I was trying to see if I had any examples in this one, but I've used them before in things, and it's very rare where I have that need. No, that's so anyway, I don't see any. I was trying to look for an up, but I have done them. I just don't have any built in. Yeah, and it's very rare where I have that need, where I want it to be done in the release. When I look, actually, my screen clipping tool. Now that I think about it, unfortunately, so let me hit Control M. Oh, I got to get out of that thing. Control M. This is the one I accidentally launched earlier. Master tray icon. So I have scripts running that are hidden, right? So my screen clipping tool, I'm going to edit it. This one, after I let go of the mouse, so my screen clipping tool, when I do this, my mouse is down, but notice the second I let go, that's when it acts, right? So I know this one does something on the mouse once the mouse wheel is up. So let's see here. That's what I just did. So it comes into here.
Yeah, the up for me is definitely something I need to use more. Quite often what I'll do is I'll just put in a while loop and have it sleep for 10 seconds or 10 milliseconds, which isn't probably the best way to go about doing things, but I'm a creature of habit. Oh, yeah, you have the same thing, it looks like. A while get key state.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't. The vast majority of the screen clipping tool I didn't write myself. I borrowed from someone and Frankensteined it together.
yeah.
I did add.
I was inspired by your screen clipping tool, so I did created like a little version of it a couple months ago. It didn't
Cool.
have all the bells and whistles to it, but it
Yeah,
was just a little project.
yeah. My new
Took me
version
about
now, the other one had it, but this one does it
the
even.
OCR, right?
Yeah, it does OCR much quicker, and it's built into Windows 10. So if you're running Windows 10, you don't have any external files. So.
And how reliable have you found it? Like, would you bet money on its reliability, or would you be like, it's good for some
It,
things?
I'm a little, after I implemented it, I was a little disappointed, not in its accuracy. It's just frequently I'll grab it and it returns nothing. So I haven't had a problem with it returning the wrong stuff. It's just at times, and I think it's usually when there's multiple colors, that but that one seems like it did pretty good. Now, of course, it does a lot better with words than it does with, code, right? So I wouldn't trust it for getting code. I wouldn't trust anything for getting code, because you're just hoping that it grabs every character. But usually when you have words, it does a pretty good job. Anyway, all right, back to
So
work.
we went through that modifier there. What other? There's a couple other modifiers. I don't remember them all. I think there's a dollar sign. Which one? What does that do?
I have no idea. I don't know what that does.
I think it's that a hotkey can't trigger itself.
Yeah, the problem is, this hotkey thing is a whole different thing in itself on its own. But
No, I mean the modifier that you add to a hotkey.
yeah, I understand. That's why I'm trying to find. That's what I'm saying. This isn't what we're looking for. I was hoping here to have it jump to where maybe I should look for here. There we go. This is where I was hoping. I think this is where. Press the hotkey itself. Cause it to trigger itself. Yeah, you're right. It's something with it. Yeah. I've never had the need for it. Here's the tilde, which we talked through. Let's see if there's any other.
The wildcard, I definitely always use that for my emergency exit. If I'm doing something where it's sending stuff.
Yeah, I don't have, I think if you have the apps key, that means you don't have this alternate graving button, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't see that key.
Yeah. Use the right key of the pair. Oh, whatever, all right, that's the same thing. So the ampersand, the shift, control, alt, Windows. Let's go past that, up. Oh, so maybe that's, there you go. There's an example of using left control down versus left control up. Yeah, I don't generally, I just haven't had the need, or at least don't think I do. Right? It's one of those. Now the other which we didn't discuss, and I don't want to actually get into the coding of it.
We actually did a video on that. So
it's super helpful, right? That you can have in one program it does one thing, and another one the same thing you do does something different. Very helpful.
And it's not just for that. You can use it for if a variable has a particular value.
Whatever.
So
yeah.
You can.
Yeah. I use it a lot for my hot strings, which we have. Because Studio doesn't like hot strings, but so that's my hot string for inserting where I want to have like a description, right? And yet, if I was in a SQL window, which I don't have access to, but or HTML, it would send like in SQL. I think it starts it with dash and then this, right? Because that's what you need in SQL. No, I think so in SQL. It's been a while since I've done SQL.
That's a comment line in SQL.
Right. Okay. So it would do the same thing in HTML. It starts it with I think that, and then puts the asterisks, and then maybe it's like that. So, but what's nice is it looks at what program I'm in, or at least, however I configure it and say, hey, when I hit the same thing, R period space, it will automatically do something different. So I don't have to think about it. And I just love that.
You think you can do a quick example?
Well, I could try. SPSS, which it should work in, but I haven't tried it. It takes a while to launch, so it won't be that quick. But we can also try, I think I have it where if the ending, see that now, shouldn't have launched such a big program. I think it looks at my file extension, and if the file extension ends in HTML, it will realize it's an HTML file. So now we're in HTML. Now let's see if I do this. Nope, it didn't get it. Bummer. That doesn't overly surprise me. But let's say we're in SPSS in syntax. And if I hit R period space, so notice the backslash there, and it ends in a period, because that's what I need in SPSS. And unfortunately, I don't even have a SQL editor anymore. I used to use that at work. But what we can do, let's just look at, because I know these are near the top. And let's just R period. R period escape. Come on. There we go. So if SPSS, it's saying, hey, if SPSS win.exe is active, send this backslash, then send an asterisk, 30 asterisks, followed by the period, and then move left 20 characters. That's how it's leaving me in the middle.
Okay, yeah.
Right. If and stats is the same, this is really the same thing. I think I can use a group command and have it just look at one instead of both of those. I thought I had all of them. Systat has a different one. That's for something else. I thought I had all my R dot periods together, but apparently I don't. It's been a while since I've looked at my code. But yeah,
I think that most people will be able to see what you have going on there.
Yeah. But that becomes super helpful of remembering one thing and not have to remember what language I'm in, right, to make a comment. It'll work, and it adjusts for you. You write it once, and then it figures it out.
So I know that you use hot strings a lot for string replacement. Is there other things that you use them for? Because I know that they can be quite powerful in doing basically the same thing that a hotkey can do.
You can use them to trigger things. I don't personally, I can't think of any that I use that way, but you definitely can. If we come back into here, so let's say, that's funny. So this is what I like to go into Facebook and tell people happy birthday, and I just hate doing it, right?
Yeah.
But I was so let me exit out of that guy. Let me pause, suspend. I think it's pause script. Let's try that now. Nope. So it's suspend. Even though it's suspend the hotkeys. Oops, wrong one. Right. That is what will turn off. So see, now that doesn't work. Yeah. Right. So what I was going to do was, do you capitalize the B?
Yes. No, not when I write it like that. When I type it as the HB, yes. When it's just HB.
Oh,
yes.
I get you. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to save this, relaunch it. Oh, that's funny. Relaunch it. Now, again, Studio doesn't like hot strings. So HB period space, and it inserts it in. Notice the space at the end, right? So that's where if you just throw an O here, save it, relaunch it. Now, when I do HB period space, there's no space at the end, right? So if you have like a password or a login, that's, more often than not, that's where I'm using those. But to your point, let's say you wanted to do a message box of that instead. So now I can use it as a trigger. Oops, I shouldn't have had the % there.
Yeah.
That says look at it as a formula. Oops. Yeah, so you can use it either way. Most people don't use them as triggers, but sometimes, it's whatever makes. That's what I, again, love about both hotkeys and hot strings. Whatever makes sense to the users, right? Then that's what works.
I think for me, if I was to get into them, I think that's my primary function would be, because hotkeys are a little bit easier for me to forget, whereas I could do something like I don't know, the # followed by notepad means run notepad.
Yeah.
Or at notepad. I can write at notepad and that would launch notepad. Rather than having a hotkey that I'm going to forget, it would be a lot easier for me to come up with a system where I just have this key to begin with, and then followed by a name of a program, and that could run that program.
Well, and it's, again, it is whatever, what works for you, obviously. I have a lot, and I use almost all, not all of them, but I love being able to say I can hit apps V and it'll, my thing's suspended. So apps V pulls up my video settings or display setting. I think it was video. So that my apps N will pull up my network settings. My apps D, that's why I had that, was for device manager. So that's why I didn't use it for the displays, because I already had it for this one. But you just get used to it, right? Especially something that you use a lot, or you can have it launch 3 things. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. So
now, the other thing I would say is if I agree, when you get to have a lot of them, it's easy to forget. So you can also use a tool like this, Quick Access Pop-Up from Jean Lalonde, right? It can build in, and it builds a GUI. And so if you can't remember your things to launch it, it's drag and drop to create this GUI interface and be like, oh, I want to, have it do whatever. and you can easily add to this menu, add things, move them around. It's really easy to use. So the ones that I don't use that frequently, I'll put them in this GUI, and then I use the structure to, for me to remember where would I put it and find it. But it can launch things, and you can actually have hotkeys. Like if we come into here, we can even somewhere. I know he changed it up a while ago. Menu icons. Do you see hotkeys listed somewhere in there? Snippets and hotstrings.
No.
But he has a way where you can see all your hotkeys. I don't put a lot of them in here, but you can build hotkeys off of stuff. Oh, here we go. Shortcuts. Whatever that's what you call them. And here are hot strings I've built into it. Those are the hot strings. This is the text that I'll push in there. So I have even my coding and AutoHotkey, right?
So, okay, let me make sure that I'm on the same page as you.
Mm-hmm.
You can have it so that way you're triggering the hotkey, or you can have it so that way the hotkey triggers one of the things that you've already set into it.
Well, let's just do one. I think it'll be easier to explain. Let's say I'm going to add something, and I'm going to add a snippet, right, which is basically the text thing. Mm-hmm. This is just what you're going to see in the code, right, with the GUI there.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know, but I have I don't use a menu like this, but I have a similar tool to this that I use to program all my scripts into it, all my favorite web pages, and everything like that.
Yeah, so we'll do Control Shift and A, and hit OK, and add it. Now here we see it here, but we're going to save, and now it actually reloads it for me. So now when I hit my button, this is that tool, right? This is the thing we short. Here's the just example. Here it even shows you Control Shift A.
I don't know if it's on my screen or your screen. Hold on one second. I got something blocking my view. Okay.
I can do it over here. So see,
okay, yeah.
You see it better?
Mm-hmm.
So here's that just an example we just added. And you can see it says Shift Control A is the hotkey. So now this one will work in Studio because he's sending paste. So Control Shift A does it, implements it.
Okay.
Or I could just say, hey, you know what? I got this thing. I can click it here, and it does it.
Okay, that's what I was talking about before. Yeah. Okay.
So it can do. Yeah. And I could have added a hot string as well. Those were hot. That was a hot key I assigned. Oops, that's my other menu. See, I could have put down here CSA as my hot string. And now, so I can pull it up here, and it actually even shows me here. So if I type CSA period, the space, it dumps it in. If I hit Control Shift A, what was it? Control SA? Control Shift A. It does it. Or I can come in here, and if I can't remember, I can just click it. So he has all three ways built into it. And then you could, let's go back in here real quickly here.
So you have a link to this, or you have a video that covers this thing here, right?
Right.
So I'll make sure to get that off you and put that in the description of this video.
It's a great tool. It's available, I think, like in 9 languages. It's free. It's shareware. So I mean, if you like it, donate some money to them. But it's pretty amazing, and it does 8 million things more, right? But this is just the simple, like, hey, you can do like these snippets. You can launch programs. I use a lot, like, so I showed you when I do this. This is a menu I built in AutoHotkey, similar to what you're seeing with his tool. The difference is this took me hours and hours and hours and hours to build, right? And in his, I could have done it in minutes because it's just drag and drop and easy to put in there and change the icons. It's so easy in his tool.
How long would you say that it took you to get proficient at it? Like, be able to actually start adding something to it? Yeah.
Oh, it's minutes. Honestly, it really isn't. The only, I've try not to laugh because John and I we're pretty good friends. But I asked him if he ever would he consider creating a dumbed down version with just the basic, like the things I just showed you, because it does so much more. And I'm not knocking it. It's just it's a bit overwhelming the first time you use it. It does so much more. And I'm like, I wish there was a way to say, hey, disable some of the stuff. And then later, if they want to do these other things that are really cool, great, let them. But at first it's a little overwhelming. But the things, some of the live stuff, like you can have links to folders, so it'll pop up in the folders, but he has like dynamic menus and folders, so you can look at stuff that's changing actively. You can have shared menus with other people, and that they can either both update them or have one that's one person has control and the rest can only use it. They can't edit it. So if you work in a work environment where you want a lot of people to be able to have access to it but not be able to control it, you can set it up that way. If you're working with other people and yet you both want to be adding tools to it, you can have it where it's shared across both of your computers. And he's got there's a lot of different things. When you look in here, actually the easiest way to say, look at add and look at all these different things. So there's special folders. These are like built-in folders. Then he has them preloaded, so you can select and choose. You can launch documents, you can launch programs. These are the Windows 8 and 10 apps. You can launch, they can be like bookmarks to websites, to an FTP site. The snippets is the one I just showed you. It's the one I use the most. Then there's features and functionality he's built in there besides the menus and groups. I mean, we spent like a good 45 minutes walking through the tool, and we still didn't cover everything, but we covered a lot of it.
Okay, so I'll make sure I get the link off you for that video, and I'll put it in the description.
Well, so, surprisingly enough, I have a hot string for it. Right. But yeah, it's a great one if if you just it's just too much to remember. And that's what I think for a lot of people, that aren't actually coding an AutoHotkey. What the really funny thing was, because if you look, well, actually it doesn't matter. We can do it here. Under my syntax assist, so I have it in different languages, but AutoHotkey is the main one, right? These are things. Oh yeah, I want a file read with UTF encoding. So these are my two examples I have as my templates, right? Well, when I was first using this, certain characters, like let's just say I don't remember what it was, but like this percent wouldn't come through. And so I wrote John, I'm like, hey, I started using your tool and for doing the stuff and it doesn't come through. And he's like, he was a little embarrassed because, you know what, it's really kind of funny. You're the first person, even though this is written in AutoHotkey, the vast majority of people that use it aren't AutoHotkey users. And he's like, you're the first person that's actually using it to write AutoHotkey code. So he had to go back and make some tweaks to make sure it didn't lose certain characters. But it was kind of funny to me, but I'm like, even he didn't use it for, again, you're not the only one that doesn't use hot strings. Almost nobody does. He actually, this tool didn't have hot strings in it until I asked nicely. I'm not gonna say I begged, but I'm like, it'd be really cool if it also had the hot strings ability, because then you have everything in there.
Well, I know that you've developed some apps for other people, so you know that there's always so many things that you have to think through and like make it idiot proof basically. And like if you have this combination of with this combination, it does this, and you have to anticipate all of that and program around it.
Yep. So anyways, what I like is having the GUI, having little icons that help remind me. So it makes it super user-friendly, easy to get organized and to remember, because if you don't do them that often, having a hotkey is really hard to remember. Those that are in my script, I use them a lot, usually multiple times a day. So, or at least, I guess multiple times a week would be a better thing to say. For the vast majority of them, I at least hit them once or twice, so they stay in my head. I don't have to, I don't forget what the hotkey is.
Yeah. Or if you're like me, there's only so many things you can use number pad 1 for before you start getting lots of conflicts.
Right.
Okay. So sorry. I noticed that so there's I know a bunch of the modifiers for hotkeys, but I don't really know any modifiers for hot strings. So that it just removes, what that means is it removes the trailing space.
Well, I think to be, let's test, because I don't recall if it actually is. I think it just doesn't add it. If it's there, let's see if it. So I guess you're right, because I do have a space there, but I thought AutoHotkey initially is ignoring that there's a space there. I thought I was just saying don't add the space after. So I think what actually happens first is AutoHotkey is trimming this first. And then when you do this, it says don't add a space, but I could be wrong. I don't know if it's actually trimming it. Because that still, I think, will come back with nothing. Yeah. So I think AutoHotkey is trim, because otherwise.
Well, what happens if you don't have that in there? What happens if you didn't have the O?
Yeah, so it's trimming it automatically and then adding one space.
Okay, yeah. Now, what are some other modifiers that people might want to look up?
Boy, you know, the only ones I really ever use is I think it's for sending raw, and I can't remember if it's the pound sign. Let's just let's look up hot strings and see what.
Forgive my ignorance, but what is raw?
Well, you know, there are certain keys like the exclamation point and pound sign and stuff that are special keys for AutoHotkey.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you actually want that.
Okay. Yes.
You know,
Okay. I
it
got
to
what you
really
mean.
send. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
got what you
it's
mean.
the send raw kind of. If you were hitting send, the star is a fun one too. It can say ignore the need for an ending thing, which I'll explain that one here in a minute. I do use that one. All of these are R. Okay, so R. So let's see. Now I think it's actually pretty good though. Wait a minute. There we go. Oh, so see the exclamation points didn't come through?
Yeah.
And there they are, right? So that raw R is a good one. That one is very important. The other one, which I use a lot, is and let me just show you by my examples instead of trying to type it and do it.
Now, can I pause for a second?
Yeah.
What if you had a situation where you want it to use it in its default way and the raw? Can you wrap it?
What
I'm pretty sure in with hotkeys or sending text you can wrap it in the brace.
Well,
The
what I
curly
would do
brace?
is just, I would basically push it all together first and then send a paste is what I would do.
Okay.
Right. It's just easier. I think you're right. You can actually drop in and out of the different not modifier, I forget what those things are called. But these things affect the how it's being used, options.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can turn it on and off within a given hot string. But what I would just do is I think is what you were kind of alluding to, is take the whole thing and do something like that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And however you need to do it, right, with your exclamation, whatever, and then just send as a paste.
Okay. Yeah.
The join command's another really fun one, which I don't want to make this tutorial 8
Yeah.
hours long.
I with this thing with that what you just showed right there, I've used it a couple of times in scripts that have to paste text in.
Yeah.
It's pretty much I saw that code, how it worked, and then every time I need to use it, I just go to my old script, copy it, and paste it.
Yeah.
So I have no idea actually what it's doing, what all the things about it do.
I was trying to find macro. Why is that? It looks like it didn't update. It's still looking for the original thing.
So I think you told me before, but off the top of your head, how many hot strings do you have?
I just don't know. Right, because the problem is, and what I'd have to do is disable that spell check one, because to me, it's not fair counting the 4,000 hot strings that are in there, right? But I have a bunch for doing like HTML, and then for like you can see, just stuff, information, right? People's email addresses.
So would you say less than 10K or higher than 10K?
No, less. Yeah.
Less than
if you're
10K?
including the spell check, yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to find the ones I did like, and I'd like to showcase them because they're. Here we go. Oh, no, that's not it. I must not have the word. Oh, you know what I can do is that's what I can do. Star : : I think it's, let me turn this off. It's trying to interpret that as a regex search. You know what? I don't know what. Oh, there it goes. Okay, now it's working. My paths to frequently used folders. There we go. So these, what's nice is, and I've actually, boy, I don't even know what that one is. So those aren't even, well, let me just give an example of it. So that is paths. It's weird. I'm not seeing my normal paths that I use frequently. I thought we're right in here. But if I'm in like a dialog box and I can hit Control Open and p.icons. So notice I don't know if you saw that. I didn't hit a period and a space or anything else, and it automatically populated this.
So as soon as you typed in the last character.
That's right. I don't know why that find it isn't.
That's the
finding.
asterisk modifier or whatever you would call it.
That's what tells it to do it right away. But do you see icons anywhere? I don't understand why this is not finding it. Oh, these. I think this thing got screwed up. These all appear to be on one. Yeah, something wild happened with my these. That's why I don't recognize these. Is I must have done some sort of search replace before. I'm gonna have to go back and revert.
So do those still work? Do those how you have it there work?
It shouldn't. Let me reload it now. Yeah, see, my whole script got screwy when I was doing something. So I'm gonna have to go. It's not gonna load. There's gonna be a lot of stuff screwed up in this. Like you even see here, clipboard, right? It.
And I see error level.
Yeah. Things got really screwy. So thankfully, I have everything in Dropbox, and even then, Studio has backup versions because I have the backups on. I can go there and restore from the earlier version there and see it. Either way.
I am so bad at backing things up. I just had to recently reinstall Windows and lost so much stuff.
Yeah,
for the second time. For the second time.
For the second, ouch. Yeah, I recall now. Yeah, I remember a while ago. That was a while ago when you lost a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, Studio automatically has the backups on, I think, and it stores them in that folder wherever Studio is running from. Well, it stores it in the folder where you're working from. So let me show you just in case anyone's not using Studio and wants to have it on. So AHK, this is where my main script is. That's the main script. So here you'll see an AutoHotkey AHK Studio backup. In here, for each script, here's my AutoHotkey one because that's the only one I've been editing. I can go in here, and then there's all these different versions that I've done stuff with, and so I can easily come in here to an earlier version and just look at what it was. And restore it.
So now, how does the backup work? Every time you save the script, it automatically saves a backup?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Which again, like this one, I didn't have that many in total, and they're small files. But I do like to go through and clean everything out because after some point you have 10,000 versions of whatever.
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't store it somewhere on another hard drive or anything, right? It just creates. This is more like version control kind of stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
But my B drive, everything under my B drive is in Dropbox, and so Dropbox you can actually go and restore different versions as well. So I can go in there, and everything, of course, is backed up. So
yeah, I've never used Dropbox, so I don't know what that is.
Well, I mean,
you don't have to explain. I get the principle. It's something that you can put. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just to do that because this is one that's not really known, and it's one of those that if you're a Dropbox user, it's good to know. So in here, I'm going to go to I think this is where I have installed progs to AutoHotkey L. This is where that AutoHotkey file will be. And so you can look at it, and here you have to actually come in here and say version history. And here it'll have backed up versions of it that I can go and look at. I can restore it, or I can just, edit it and look at what was there. So this isn't something you normally realize you can do, because on your computer, Dropbox is running, but it doesn't have all the backup history restore version stuff as things, if that makes sense. So you have to go to the web version, go just like I just showed you, right? And then click that drop down, which is not even obvious, right? Because you have to find the thing, find the program, the instance you want of the script, and then click here and then find version history, right? It's one of the things like
I'm sure a lot of the people that will watch this video, they'll have a lot more understanding of this kind of thing than I do. It's not really my
well,
my thing.
yeah, but it's the same thing as you saw the different timestamp on my computer that HK Studio's doing. They're doing the same thing, right? Just on their servers, they have all the different versions of when it was saved, right? So I can go back and I can look at what was there and I can restore. And actually, what's nice is, like, let's see, when was
Now, okay, one question for you. Do you set this program to watch for updates, or do you have to manually
no,
say, okay,
it's all
post
done.
this up?
Anything in Dropbox, that's part of its functionality,
Okay.
right? So everything under Dropbox is always backed up, always versioned, everything. So that's why I make sure I work. I'm not going to say exclusively, because I don't quite do that, but it's very close to it. Everything I do is under Dropbox. I mean, 99.9% of anything I'm working on, it's under Dropbox, and therefore I can always, log into it later. I can come back. I can be at another person's computer and have access to my files. It's really handy.
Yeah. There's so many of these kind of applications that I just never used. Don't know how to
Yeah.
use them. Don't know where to start. Don't know if I want to start. Like Google Drive, I used that once.
Yeah.
Dropbox, I've heard of it before.
Yeah.
Never used it.
The nice, yeah, and Google Box has it now too. But what I really like about it is I can come in here and their local files. So see here, it says Dropbox. These files are physically, they're on my computer, right? And then they're also in the cloud. And if you and I had shared a folder, they would be on your computer, right? So they're cached locally at the cloud and on the people's computers. And yet, if I make a small tweak, it will notify the cloud there's a small tweak, which would then circle down to your computer and make that small tweak. Right? It's a great tool to have, especially if you're a programmer.
Another thing that people are, I think, pretty surprised when I tell them is, what's that coding site? What's that
GitHub?
coding? Huh? Yeah, that one,
Yeah.
that one. Yeah, I don't know how to use that either. I've never used that either.
Yeah, Makeswift has showed me some stuff on ways to do it and use it. I don't regularly use it because I use Dropbox, but when I was doing Python meetups, one guy came one time and presented on GitHub and how they back up everything, and it was really amazing at what an amazing job it does, line by line, checking differences, branching stuff. It's really cool. But again, I don't work on teams usually. I have all my stuff in. I just didn't have the need for it, but it is an amazing service.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's not make this too long. We're getting a little around here.
Yeah, I think we've gone on a little bit of tangent.
Yeah, but they're a lot of fun. I have a Udemy course on Hotstrings, and that's the thing is, like, Hotstrings, they're very easy to start with, but you can do amazing stuff with them. Like, one example I have is if you had the Declaration of Independence, right? I could type 2 letters and bam, insert the Declaration of Independence in any document that I'm running on my computer, right? So you can send large, groups of things. You can send small things. It just depends what you're doing. And there's so many tweak this and that. They can be complicated. They don't have to be, but they can be. But hey, this was fun.
Yeah, very, very fun.
Hopefully, yeah. And I'm gonna, in 6 months, I'm circling back with you. I'm gonna see how many you have.
Well, I don't know. I used to have a script. A few years ago where I could activate hot strings with a push of a button, and then I could type them up, and as soon as I typed it up, it would close out that program.
Yeah,
But I found that the thing that I was using it for, it made sense. Like when you're thinking about it abstractly, it made sense to do it that way. But when you started actually exercising it, it just wasn't as practical as it should be. Like for example, creating GUI controls, right? Rather than typing out GUI add blah 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 blah
right,
blah 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 blah, you just type out 2 characters or whatever, and it types out that string.
right.
In theory, that makes a lot of sense, but when I would actually use it, it it just didn't. It wasn't as
Well,
it,
I think
I didn't find it
for
as beneficial as it could be.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just have a lot of stuff that I just don't use that frequently. And so like, oh, I need to do a loop. And here is my, template for looping over some code, right? And this is where I'm like, oh, I'm going to loop over var. I'm going to parse, but this is one like, oh,
If you're trying to show your screen, you're showing me. You.
sorry, I stopped sharing. I forgot. So what I did was I said LP2 space. This dumps in my loop template, right? Which just is like, okay, first let's create some data under var, which I'll probably already have. I wouldn't really need this. I just still leave it here because I just delete it. And then I'm going to loop over. I'm going to do a for loop over var, and I'm going to go. So that makes me go. And I'm breaking it on the either line return, new line, or line return, right?
Mm-hmm.
So each line is going to be a loop. And then I have other stuff here for doing logic on it or setting variables or whatever. But this is my template. Like if I need to do something where I'm often I grab a file and I need to parse it. So I have this at the tips of my fingers, right? And I have it where this does the taskbar notify. This updates here of how far along it is in the process. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it'll step over it, and I have things like, oh, if it's blank, here's an example if it's blank, or if it's certain value, do I want to skip the header row, which would just be the first row? But
And
I
you'll
don't
just
have to.
now typically if you were to use this in a script, would you delete everything you're not going to be using at that time, or you just comment it out?
It depends on my certainty of how sure I wasn't going to use it.
Mm.
If I was very sure that I didn't want to use like have a trait tip about I can mouse over it and see the status where I am, then I would delete it. But more often than not, I've found just leave the damn line there. You think you wouldn't use it, and then later you want it back, and you're like, crap. Okay, I gotta go grab it again.
Yeah.
So yeah. More often than not, like these though, I'm like, yeah, these aren't relevant. But again, I have it a template at the tips of my fingers, right? And you saw my list in a QAP here, where all this stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, I want a title case of that is so much more complicated than you would think. The code for that, or padding a variable with 0, or get rid of everything, just all these things are like, you know what? Here are things I do a lot, and I just have a nice example of them, and I don't have to go hunt for it. So that's how I use it, right? It's and granted, I don't even like this one, the for loop. I do use that one a lot, so I had that one memorized. You saw it, but a lot of the other ones I don't have them memorized because I just don't use them that often.
Yeah, you have some interesting examples.
Yeah, and that's the thing is when you realize, like, you start realizing, you know what? Hey, I do that a lot. Well, it takes me like a minute, if that, to throw it in here, right? That's the thing is it's so easy, and I don't. That's where I don't use a hotkey for it. I use the GUI because I just can't remember it. But yeah.
Yeah.
But remember, baby step too. Don't try to
Yeah.
do too many at once.
Yeah. Don't create a file with 500 hot strings right away.
That's honestly the people that I've done it for, when they try to do too much at once, they get frustrated and they stop using it. I say do 1 or 2 at the most a day because it's just too easy to forget them. Or print them up and have them next to you, until you start memorizing them.
Yeah.
Well, but the other one I say is that people that work at like, for in a corporate or business environment where they're constantly typing out like the name of their company or some, hey, you need to go do this and this, it's great to have these things, right? It's so much easier than manually typing it every time. And you don't have to go save it in a file and then go find it, right? You just have it in a hot string and you can pull it up very quickly and easily. Anything that's repetitive like that, they come in super handy.
So, how many Udemy courses do you have now?
Just the two.
Just the
There's
two?
an intro to AutoHotkey and the Hotstrings. I have, I'd say, at least 5 more planned out. I just haven't had the time to work on them.
Yeah, I know it can be a lot of work to get something up.
It is. It definitely is. I have them mapped out, but it's recording the videos and making them bite sized where they're convenient, and that it just takes time.
I think you have a good demeanor for it. You've been doing your webinars for quite a while, and you usually have
Thanks.
a good plan, and
That's the whole
everything's laid
thing,
out.
right? Is yeah, and not well. You know what though? It really helps is when you lay out when you do the work ahead of time and you lay them out into bite-sized pieces. It becomes so much easier to not do like we just kind of did, right?
Yeah.
Where just keep growing and growing what you're covering. When you have it where it's like, I got 3 minutes, right? It's got to be in 3 minutes. It becomes easier instead of harder. You might think it'd be harder to be short, but you're like, well, screw it. I'll just shrink down what I cover, right? And then that way you only focus on that. And I found it to be easier. But it does mean you have to do your work ahead of time.
Yeah.
A lot more thought process has to go into it before you start the videos.
Yeah. All right. Well, Joe, it has been
Been
a
a pleasure.
pleasure.
You bet, man.
We are going to be doing shortly. We're going to be doing a video for your channel where we're
Yeah,
going to be looking at something different.
sounds good.
But I look forward to doing that with you.
All right. Talk to you soon,
All
man.
right.
Bye.